So let's begin. Top line reads: B'siyata d'shmaya Moishe Yom HaKippurim h'tshk Moishe Yom Kippur, 1964. Star. They write. I'll just read the English translation rather. So sometime after the Rebbe returned to his holy room, after the Suda of Moisei Yom Kippur, which he had in the apartment of the Frierdiker Rebbe, which ensued until the passing of his Rebbitzin in 1917. So this is 1964. So the Rebbe came out of his room all of a sudden from his holy room at approximately 11 p.m. And he entered into the small Beis Medrash, which were only a few people were present. He looked to all sides and went to the south wall and sat on a chair. And there was no table there. They brought a table in front of him, and he began a maamer which lasted for 14 minutes. Then they tell us, the publishers tell us, look in the volume Melech b'Mesiboy, volume 1, page 95. So Melech b'Mesiboy, this is 2 volumes, the king's table, literally. So they collected, as much as they were able to do so, the conversations, it wasn't very much, that ensued during the Sudas. What would happen often is that the Bochrim would set up Rashag, the Rebbe's brother-in-law, to ask questions. And often he would just simply ask his own questions, and there's some fascinating exchanges that took place over the years until 1970. So they're telling us, look over there, what happened over there? So in 1966, 2 years later, so the Rebbe goes out of his room, again after the Suda, Rabbi Chadakov is there with him, he's going home. And there's an olam waiting. The Rebbe turns to him and says, why are they here? So they said, for a maamer. Why? Because that was 100 years since the Istalkos of the Tzemach Tzedek. So they thought, like this is 150 years from the Alter Rebbe, that there would be a maamer. So the Rebbe turned to, because of, and to which he said to Chadakov and Rabbi Chadakov, because it happened once, so they're expecting it as a precedent. So they're just completing the story. Better to make a mistake, friends, that way than the other way. Be there, there's no maamer, or there's a maamer and you weren't there. Okay, this nobody could have expected. But it's quite interesting to note, it's 11 o'clock, Moisei Yom Kippur, and there's Bochrim in the Zal. Just tell you that in later years, at 11 o'clock at night, Moisei Yom Kippur, the Zal is packed. Why? Because Rabbi Kazanovsky used to verbring every Moisei Yom Kippur. It was one of the highlights of a room around the Rebbe. Before I came to New York, I was told, where to be, where to show up. And one of them was Moisei Yom Kippur, and he would tell every year the same story, but that's not for now. Same stories. And who he was a legendary, wonderful chassid. He's
Rabbi
Bell's wife's grandfather. Yeah?
Lahoyer Bochrim would make sure not to leave 770.
Right. Yeah.
Until after the Rebbe left Lahoyer.
Yeah. So the place was never empty. Yeah, true. Till they went home. Okay, so here's the maamer. Let's learn it together. Lahavin. So footnote 1. Before the maamer, the Rebbe said that this is a maamer that the Rebbe said Moisei Yom Kippur Tov Kuf Samach Beis, and it's in a Bichel Chassidus, which is a bundle of manuscripts of that year that only now arrived to the Rebbe's hands. Where it was till now, maybe somebody knows, I don't, but this was not uncommon, that these things were kept by people. Either they had them and gave them, or they just got out of Russia. Could be just came out of Russia, I don't know the story. Rabbi Levin would know. So would Chaim Shol, for that matter. Al Kaponim, it was subsequently published. Now it's all available, and Seif my bottom Tov Kof Samach Beis and so on. So now it's published, but then it was not. So the Rebbe is basically giving over the mind of the Alter Rebbe. We're going to learn it. To understand that which we find in the words of Razal. Doros Horishonim Admo that the earlier generations from Adam till Matan Torah didn't merit to receive the Torah, even though they were perfectly righteous. And Noach and Avraham. End of quote. He says here, I need to look this up. Divrei Razal, but the order doesn't send us any medrash, and this the Eira Torah and Vishom Nisman. There's Maram Mekoimis to medrash, so why not bring it here? This is interesting. I can, Beis Hashem, look it up. Shemizeh Mashma, from this very Shaila itself, the inference is, shall we say no b'Torah mitzvahs achamat Torah? No, not from the Shaila. No, I'm sorry. He's simply saying this. We see the statement of Chazal that they were tzaddikim gemurim still didn't receive Torah. So shemizeh mashma. Shall we say no b'Torah mitzvahs achamat Torah? They didn't, but we did. So our avodah in Torah mitzvahs after matan Torah l'mayla yosem avidosim is higher than their avodah. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, mizeh sham lachazal. This is the Gemara says that Kiyem Avram Avinu as kol Torah kol actually nitno. Avram kept everything before it was given, even the Erev Tavshilin. He was able to grasp spiritually all of Torah mitzvahs. That's extraordinary. So on the other hand, their avodah is higher. That they were able to access, as it were, Torah mitzvahs before it was given. So which is greater? The Shnei Mem is both true. There's a great advantage of Matan Torah over which existed before that they did not merit Torah. That's on the one hand. There's an advantage in the virtue of the avodah of the ovis, the gab avodah say no over our avodah. And what is it? So first he gives the answer bekitza, and then I can see v'yuvan in the next ois. The mile of their avodah was that they reached heavenwards, they worked on themselves and they ascended. And that's the Torah which they achieved was through their effort. That's the mile of their avodah. So in contrast to that, our Chesodin is in the latter generations, meaning Achamat and Torah, Avidosam, the Avodah is B'derech HaMshachim L'mayla L'mata. It's a gift from above to below. She says, our Inyan Matan Torah L'mayla, it's a gift that comes from above. Mitzad Zeh, God law, but that's the Mayla though. Mitzad Zeh, God law, Mayla Samshachash, our Mayla is that it's a gift. So their Mayla is that it's what? Their Avodah, Melamata L'mayla, and our Mayla is that it's a gift from above. So what does all this mean? So a moshel of the Talmud, Talmid Yosef school in the Mishnah says, I gained much from my masters, my colleagues, but from my students. Why? Because the Talmud, he wisens his teacher. Now, notwithstanding the fact that he answered the teacher, nonetheless, as much as the disciple, the Talmud, adds to the teacher's wisdom, it doesn't approach the virtue, the depth of the seichel amok that the teacher reveals himself. That's fundamentally inaccessible to the Talmud. The lo yiserish adiyat Talmud, completely independent of the contribution of the Talmud. Now, what is his contribution? The Talmud amachim is Rabbi Perusha. So, what does it mean that he? How does he do so? How does he bring chacham even to his teacher? So he asks questions and contradictions. That the Talmud brings to the attention and asks b'divar Rav and what he just heard the Rav saying. So he asks the kasha. So what does that affect? Goydim effects. Goydim hu sheyayim mikarav esichloi. So he compels the Rav to deepen, to answer the question. He didn't think of the question. So the Talmud asked the question. So now he's got to deepen the idea. Now explain it with more insight and explanation so that the contradictions and the questions are resolved. He didn't think of this question and answer before. He's now become wise in it. And it's like in Ischakim, it's original articulation of the idea, didn't it? Consciously wherever it is before. And it's what? Adikushis at Talmud, because the Talmud asked the kasha. But what did he introduce by saying? It's all very good, but it doesn't come to the Seichel Omok that the Rav is Megala, independent completely of the Talmud, the way it is in his world. Seichel in his world. Even though what's happened now? The teacher has given a new insight that wasn't said before. He's added to him. He's machkim is Rabbi. Become mokim nonetheless. Kivin shesvaras harav nailed at the kushus Talmud. This whole insight is a response to the question of the Talmud. So what are you getting from the intelligence of the master? It's only what he's giving over is limited to the Talmud who asked the question against the answer. Let's stop here because it's Thursday. We need to